In this video, I want to share my personal experiences going through the BCG interview process. So if you're preparing for a job interview with BCG, or you're just curious what the BCG interview process is like, then this video is for you. Before we talk about the interview process, let's talk about how I even got to interview at BCG. When I first started applying to consulting during my final year of university, I didn't know much about consulting. In fact, I would spend a whole entire afternoon on Wikipedia trying to figure out what management consultants actually do. And when I started researching into the various firms that were management consulting firms, so I went on LinkedIn to see what management consulting firms existed and who I might know who worked there. And I learned that a few people who were a few years ahead of me that I took classes with in university, they worked for a company called Boston Consulting Group. And I'll tell you, the people who were working at Boston Consulting Group who I saw on LinkedIn, they were a lot smarter than me. I was like, wow, if I get to work with people like them day to day, I get to grow, that would be great. And that's started my decision to apply for Boston Consulting Group. But before I could get a chance to work with all those smart people at BCG, I needed to get a job offer. So my journey to a job at BCG starts the same as yours, which is the decision to apply. And BCG has two paths to applying. First is as a student, whether it's for an internship or a full-time role, you just apply online through your school portal or through the BCG portal. And that's the path that I took. The second path is that if you're already out of school, that is you're working or recently graduated or graduated many years ago, you'll apply directly to the BCG portal. So they'll ask for things such as your resume, your cover letter, and a bit about your background. On the application, you'll also be asked to rank the cities that you're applying to. For me in particular, they gave me 3 options. So I put San Francisco as my top one because I wanted to be where the tech companies and startups were, because my goal was to use consulting to get into entrepreneurship. But if San Francisco didn't take me, I put Los Angeles as my second choice because after 3 winters in Connecticut and the New England area, I was just done with snow. And my third choice was Atlanta because that's where my hometown was, and I was okay going back to my hometown. And if BCG is in their hiring season, then you can expect to hear back within 2 weeks. In fact, I heard back 2 days later. That's how fast BCG was. After the BCG team reviews your applications, if it's a yes from them, then you might be invited to take one of BCG's online tests. The type of test will depend on the office and the role that you're applying to. But there are 3 popular ones that I want to highlight. The first one is called 𝗙𝗂𝗄𝗃, where you'll have an online case with a chatbot. The second is the 𝗙𝗵𝗱𝗄𝗃, where you'll play a series of games that assesses your ability to be a BCG consultant. And the third is the BCG potential test, which is a multiple online test that tests your ability to work with numbers and do logical reasoning. And because you don't have to take all of the assessments, I won't spend this video talking about each of them in detail. Because if I did that and told you what the tests are, what they test on, and how you pass them, then this video is going to be longer than the Oppenheimer movie. But luckily, I actually do cover each of these in other videos separately. So if you do have one of these tests coming up, you can click the links to the videos. I'll actually put them in the description below and you can learn more about it. So for example, if you have the 𝗙𝗵𝗱𝗄𝗃, you can click below to learn more about the 𝗙𝗵𝗱𝗄𝗃. So you can check those out before your interviews. After you pass your BCG online assessment, you'll actually be invited to meet the BCG team and be interviewed live. And your interview process will also vary depending on the position you apply to. For example, if it's BCG's core consulting team or one of the other teams such as BCGX. So again, your interview experience, how many interviews you have will vary. I applied for the BCG core consulting, which is what I'll talk about in this video, but I also have other videos covering the other processes as well. For the BCG core consulting group, there are typically 2 rounds of interviews. The first are conducted mostly by associates, consultants, and project leaders, and sometimes principals. The second are conducted by project leaders, principals, and partners. Both the first and final round interviews will consist of a series of case interviews as well as fit interview questions. The case interviews at BCG are candidate-led, and the fit and behavioral interviews that happen will assess your experiences, your motivations for applying to consulting to BCG, as well as how well you might fit into the BCG culture. If the terms case interview, candidate-led format, or fit interview is new to you, don't panic. I actually have videos that cover all of them in detail as well. So you can just click to those to learn more about it. But just know that when you're invited to interviews, you're going to get a series of case interviews and fit interviews. From my experience, during my first round interviews, I was interviewed by a project leader and a principal. So I had 2 people interview me in total in the first round. The project leader asked me about a gas station that was wanting to increase its profits. Following that, the principal presented me with a prompt about an Italian real estate company that was looking to invest in land outside of Italy. So this involved a lot of evaluations and math. For the fit interviews, I was asked by the first interviewer, why am I interested in consulting and why BCG in particular? While my second interviewer wanted to know more about why I chose the major I chose and why I chose the university I chose. Might have been just my interviewers, but I left the first round interviews at BCG feeling that I passed the interviews just because they both smiled, said I did a great job, and said I would hear back pretty soon. And in fact, 2 days later, I heard back that my interviews went well enough that they would want me to come back for second round interviews. And for the second round interviews, I was interviewed by 1 principal and 2 partners. And so in total, I got 3 case interview prompts and a lot of fit interview prompts. So the first case interview prompt I had was a healthcare startup that was deciding between which of 3 products to launch. The second case interviews was about a nonprofit that was looking for a way to get more volunteers. The answer was actually not to get more volunteers, but to keep their current volunteers volunteering longer because they had a turnover issue. The third case prompt I got was about a tech company that was looking to reduce cost. The answer actually came when we were looking at a flow of how they manufactured their hardware and how we could automate each of the processes and reduce the amount of waste that was happening. So that was a pretty cool case because I had to draw out a diagram of how the manufacturing plant worked and then my ideas for how I would automate each of the processes, even though I didn't come from a hardware or factory manufacturing background. So that was a pretty cool experience on a case interview, actually. And then for each of the fit interviews, I was asked a series of questions. For the first interviewer, he wanted to know about a time I had to lead a team that had a tight deadline. And then he also wanted to know a time where I had to convince someone to a new way of thinking. For the second interviewer, he wanted to know what was my biggest failure, what were some of my favorite hobbies, and why I chose to study liberal arts. And the third interviewer drilled me down into a time where I had to deal with a tough problem where I didn't have the immediate solution. And from there, he just kept asking me about alternatives. Why didn't I think about this? Why did I think about that? And he ended by asking me why I wanted to apply to consulting and why BCG in particular. After the interview, I waited about a week for my results to come back. And when I got the call from one of my interviewers, he said, unfortunately, they said I wasn't a good match for them. They basically told me, thanks for your time and good luck with the process. And it really got me down. And I asked, was because of my case interview skills? And he was really honest. He said, hey, you were actually great. We actually didn't think that you were a good cultural fit for BCG. In fact, we think there are other firms that you'd be a better cultural fit for. So my recruitment journey with BCG unfortunately came with an end with no offer. But I would later on secure offers from other firms before choosing to work at Bain & Company. While I could spend hours talking about how to prepare for BCG, I'll talk about the two strategies where I see a lot of people messing up. One of the strategies was what I wish I knew when I was applying. With the case interview, expect for BCG to have more math than usual, especially within their exhibit reading and their math. And that's because BCG's questions tend to gear more towards the quantitative thinking as well. So just think about that as you're preparing for BCG. And the second is with the fit interviews, really take the time to understand what makes BCG unique and why you would be a good fit. And again, this is where I messed up, where I, at the time, didn't focus enough on BCG. And it became very clear when my interviewer was upfront with me and said, hey, we don't think you'd be a good fit for BCG. And there are a couple themes that BCG actually focuses on their fit interviews. And you see that from the questions that were asked from me. The first is your leadership skills, which is your ability to lead and inspire others. The second is the impact, is the effect that you have on your environment as well as others. The third is your influence, which is your ability to be able to convince someone to your way of thinking. And finally, resilience is how you overcome adversities such as setbacks. If I knew what I knew now, I would have spent more time on my fit interviews, given that was the reason that BCG felt I wasn't a good fit. I look back at the prompts that I was thinking about for BCG versus the ones I used for other firms. They could have aligned better with BCG's values. And I can see why my stories ended up aligning better with other firms that I applied and got offers to, like Bain. And I could have done a much better job at BCG. So I don't want you to make that same mistake. But the good news from this is that because I did fail, I would later use my own failings to help make sure that others succeed. And over the years, I've helped over 100 people start their careers at BCG. And because you made it this far into the video, I actually want to give you 2 additional resources to help you with your BCG interview. First, if you're applying to BCG, if you comment below the city that you're applying to, I'll send you additional resources to help you. So if you put BCG Boston, I'll share with you some additional resources to help you with the BCG Boston interviews. And if you're 100% serious about wanting to work at BCG or another top consulting firm, I'd love to help you even more. My team and I are former consulting recruiters, interviewers, and consultants. And we've helped applicants land interviews, ace the case interviews, and ultimately land their offers at firms like BCG and other amazing consulting firms. And today, we have a 90% success rate. That is 9 out of 10 people who work with us land at least one offer. I'd love to see how we can do the same thing for you. If you click the link below, you can actually book a free call with my team and to find out more. Booking a call only takes a few minutes. But those few minutes could put you one step closer to landing your consulting offer. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually hear from 𝗤𝗏, who actually landed his dream offer at Bain, where I worked, and also BCG, but he eventually would sign with BCG. So I'll actually link to his video above my head so you can actually learn from 𝗤𝗏 how he landed his Bain and BCG offer and what made him want to sign with BCG. I want to wish you good luck with your BCG interview process, and I'll see you in the next video.